2022, I was threatened by the Southern Poverty Law Center, NAACP, the Democrat Party, because I stood up for teachers in Gunnersville, Alabama that was falsely accused of racism. Now, just not long ago, indictments have dropped against the Southern Poverty Law Center. You know why? Because they was paying the KKK to do their work. And think about this. The NAACP works alongside the Southern Poverty Law Center. Isn't that ironic? I went through so much. I stood there by myself trying to protect Gunnersville, and I was always right.
Look up Southern Poverty Law Center and how they was allegedly donating millions to extremist groups. One in particular, the KKK. Blacks, if that's not enough to leave the Democratic Party, I don't know what else to tell you.
They're literally putting high school chapters of ours on a hate group next to the KKK and next to neo-Nazi groups. And I mean, we can laugh this off. There's an element to this. Remember that there was a shooter that went to the Family Research Council years ago, inspired by the SPLC list. This is them trying to make us basically surrender at Turning Point USA. We're going to do the opposite, and our students are only going to lean in even more. But they can't debate us on our ideas. They cannot have dialogue. They cannot actually go onto the merits of why they are right or why we might be wrong. Instead, they must smear us with the age-old one-liner that you are a racist or that you are a hater.
And the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, has been found on wiretaps, funneling money into hate groups. The KKK, Aryan Nation, all of them. The whole Charlottesville thing, all of them. They have been funneling and putting money into hate groups in order to justify their existence. So for them to continue to be relevant, they had to manufacture hate directed mainly towards black folks. So my question to black folks is, are you tired of getting played?
The Justice Department alleges SPLC defrauded donors by using their money to pay leaders and members of the extremist groups that the organization claimed they were trying to bring down. The SPLC is accused of secretly funneling more than $3 million between 2014 and 2023 to field sources, including $1 million for an informant with the neo-Nazi organization National Alliance, $270,000 to a member of the group that planned the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017, and $300,000 to a member of an Aryan Nations affiliate. The Justice Department is charging SPLC with 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering.
The SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred.
To me. And you have to wonder for what purpose. I mean, they love to put groups and names of prominent conservatives, and over the years they've attacked me, on their lists and smear and slander them. And now we find out that they use a backdoor and shadowy accounts to fund them. Can you explain that?
Yeah, Sean, look, money doesn't lie. The charity that supposedly fought the Klan funded the Klan. The charity that supposedly fought neo-Nazis funded neo-Nazis. The Southern Poverty Law Center ran a methodical, calculated scheme to defraud their donor base of $3 million and lied to them and used an illicit banking structure system to create shell companies to hide their money and who it was being sent to, specifically for the reason to sow discord and hate into our society. This is the ultimate definition of hypocrisy. And if you look at the indictment produced by the Department of Justice and the FBI, you will see that these banking institutions tie directly the funding mechanisms in which the Southern Poverty Law Center used to fund at least 8 hate groups they supposedly wanted to take out, but they were paying the very villains of our society they supposedly wanted to protect us from. That's the ultimate hypocrisy.
When an organization starts making serious money fighting a problem, and then they're paying these salaries and they're building these empires, and you have these high profile positions, and they have ends, with a certain party. They don't want the problem to disappear.
Come on.
They actually need the problem, right? They need the problem. So to be honest with you, I'm not shocked, by these charges at all. I'm not shocked. No different than, we see what's going on, out there in California when it comes to the homeless problem and some of the other issues out there. They get all of this money to solve a problem, but they don't want to actually solve the problem, because if you solve the problem, the money dries up. So Thomas Sowell, he said this, that, basically he was like, racism, it's not dead, but it's on life support. And this is an example of it being on life support. They're making it up. They're paying people to basically go out here and sow division and distrust in the country. It's so crazy. This race hustle industry, man, it's big business.
What makes it so bad is that, remember, they used that Charlottesville situation to condemn Trump.
Yeah.
And they used that false quote, but they didn't tell you that march was funded by this group. They literally funded this. They funded the guy that did this whole thing. So, man, exposure is a wonderful thing. My only problem is that it needs to happen sooner. Can anybody say sooner? Why does it take so long to expose the demons that are out there doing this riff-griff on a daily basis? I wish that we would put together a system that would pop out these exposures when they happen, at least shortly after, so that people can know. Because you have to understand, a whole lot of damage has been done. A whole lot of damage. People are still convinced today that march was true, and that Trump was wrong, and that they believe that the misquoting of Trump. They believe that today, and they still using that quote. So my point is that's why that longevity is so dangerous. I just want to say that I hope that we can get our game together. We have become much more efficient in exposing these crazy people, because it's serious business. Think about if they're doing that. Think about what these black race hustlers are doing. Think about the groups that they're supporting to stay relevant, because they got to stay relevant too. They got to stay relevant too. So if you do some research on them, you might find them doing some pumping up some white groups to make themselves look good. They certainly are pushing every opportunity they get about racism. They'll make something up to make people think they need them. So listen, this is good news. This is good news. I hope we see more of it.
No, you're absolutely right, Minister Danzel. And the reason why this hadn't been uncovered sooner, they've been under investigation for a little bit, but the Biden administration told them to drop it.
That's right.
Biden administration for 4 years told them, don't stop the investigation.
Thank you.
Because they're in on the grift.
God is so good all the time. All the time, God is good. And I'm with Minister Denzel. I understand what you're saying about why it wasn't done. But you know what? God is always perfect in his time.
Oh, yes.
And I love every bit of this, because let me tell you something. If there is no illness, then there's no need for doctors, right?
That's right.
If there is no race hustling grift, if there's no racism, then how in the world are these race hustlers going to make money? They can't make money if they don't have any.
They have to get a real job.
Looking at all the different things, John Ossoff, who's running for re-election here in Georgia, SPLC and him are like this, and allegedly, and you have all these different type of behaviors, and you're looking at people like Chuck Schumer, who was upset because this came out. Why are you upset? Why are you upset that the people who claim that they are protecting people from extremist racist groups have now been found to be paying those same groups? You should be like, you know what? I appreciate that y'all are putting this out, but you know what? The best thing, and Christian said this, and I was saying this at home myself, the best thing that came out the SPLC indictment is that we just discovered again, or we revealed again, how the Democratic Party has never left the bed of the KKK, the Aryan Party, or any of those people. They never left that bed. They are still in bed, wrapped up tight with them. Because while people are sitting out here saying, no, this is a different Democratic Party, they switch places. Now y'all have got to see it in your own face with your own two eyes, that they are very much wrapped up in it. And that's why they keep their foot on your neck with that whole race hustle, race baiting game. Get over it. Prior to Obama, the race relations were better prior to Obama.
Oh, yes.
It was way better. I don't remember going through all of the racism conversations and things like that growing up, going through. It was until Obama got in there and that Mike Ferguson, that was when everything went haywire. Do y'all notice that SPLC and BLM, they got caught basically doing the same exact things? I'm just saying, the same grift. I wonder,
right.
people. I wonder, what does that tell you?
Because obviously they're on defense mode, at this point. There's lawyers and folks out there trying to defend their behavior.
Question that what we learned from informants saved lives. Today, the federal government has been weaponized to dismantle the rights of our nation's most vulnerable people.
ABC News legal contributor James Samples here for more on this. Hi, James. The Southern Poverty Law Center has positioned itself as the country's watchdog for hate groups. So what's your reaction to these charges?
Well, the charges, Diane, are to understand what is being charged. The government is alleging that the Southern Poverty Law Center used paid informants to infiltrate groups like the KKK, Nazi organizations, and that those payments are fraudulent in the sense that they came from shell organizations. If you think about that argument, though, taken to its logical end, what the reason there are shell corporations that are set up to make these payments is that if the payments said Southern Poverty Law Center, the individual's anonymity would be compromised. Their safety, maybe even their lives, would be at risk.
How strong is the Justice Department's case here, and what do they need to show in order to prove this in court?
In order to show fraud here, they need to show that there was a material misrepresentation that harmed a victim, i.e. that the donors to the Southern Poverty Law Center were, in essence, defrauded because the money that was donated to the organization was then used, in the government's terms, to support the organizations that are purported to be the targets of the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Do they have donors complaining?
They do not yet have donors complaining. And in fact, the organization has been hugely successful over the years in fighting.
Well, they don't have donors complaining because the donors didn't know that this was happening. So they didn't know what to complain about. This is
And if they did, they wouldn't lie. They would lie and say they didn't complain. They probably complaining. They had enough time
there
to
very
find
much
out.
could be some people complaining. Exactly.
Fighting these battles, you might say that the donors were getting exactly what they paid for. And if you think about an analogy here, when the FBI pays an informant to infiltrate the mob, they don't give them a paycheck that says, from the U.S. government. They hand them a bag of cash. Well, that can't happen here, so that's why they set up these shell organizations.
But they're not the government of legal agency. They're not government legal agents to do that. They don't have that kind of authority.
Exactly. You are a nonprofit. Your job is not to infiltrate, hate groups and pay off people. That's not your job.
Come on.
Oh my goodness, their lives are so weak. It's pathetic.
This is only day one. The indictment was issued yesterday. The defense hasn't been heard from yet. This will take time, but it does seem to be like a targeted attack against an organization that is not necessarily one that the party thinks highly of.
What do you make of the timing coming just over a week after the Justice Department moved to vacate more convictions related to the January 6th attack on the Capitol? Is that a coincidence, or is the administration trying to send a message?
I think that is the right question to ask, absolutely. 1 week ago, to be clear, the same Department of Justice sought to vacate the convictions of Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. And now they're going after a group that has fought against hate groups. In just the span of a week, the juxtaposition at a minimum is striking.
Legs, unfortunately. It is. They've gone after the Southern Poverty Law Center, but not the KKK. They've gone after the the civil rights organizations, but not the actual extremist groups.
They just freed the Proud Boys. What do you expect them to do?
You're right, Michael. Well, excuse me, I forgot who we're dealing with.
Thank you.
They're on the side of the extremists, it feels like.
No, they're on the side of racists and people who undermine the very principles of the country. And they have been from the very beginning, because that's where Donald Trump has always nurtured himself. Bottom line.
Oh man, these people are ridiculous, yo. They're ridiculous. It's a thing, in The Wire, if you guys recall, I don't know if you guys ever watched The Wire before, but in The Wire, if you recall, when they started following the money, that's when all the chaos broke. Because they're like, no, don't follow the money, follow the drugs. See, the FBI followed the money and they found out. I put anything on it that some of these people, they're getting exonerated because they are cooperating with they're cooperating with the federal government, letting it be known, we received $300,000-$400,000. We received money from these folks. And when you start following the money, in The Wire, it tells you when you follow the money, there is no telling where it's no telling what you will uncover when you follow the money, because normally there's some politicians, Clay Davis, you know what I'm saying? There's all kinds of people, you know what I'm saying, that you're like, wait, I didn't know he was on the take. Oh yeah. That's why they're like, no, just focus on the groups doing the crime, not the people funding the foolishness.
Because they can't make money. They can't make money. Lars, can you see Simone and them up there are frantic that MS and Noah's watching? They're like, hold on, y'all, stopping our money train. Now they're going to see there's no racism.
In the currency of racism, the supply is high, but the demand is low. And that's the problem that leftists are faced with. The leftists, now, if I'm going to go back to our most prominent race huckster, Jesse Smollett, and I can't talk about this long because, chat, as you know, I've been admonished to be quick. So very quickly, you all know Jesse Smollett found himself out in the middle of a polar vortex, supposedly being hassled by some racists. What they buried in that story was the week before. The week before that incident, Kamala Harris had introduced an anti-lynching bill. So she introduced a bill for a problem that does not exist to bolster her senatorial bill portfolio, because people were saying, well, what had she done?
She hadn't done anything.
So she hadn't done much, and she hadn't done anything specifically attractive to Black people. So the answer was just write a bill that affects no one for an event that doesn't happen. So she did that. She invited Jesse Smollett down to the Senate, and I believe named him one of, or the ambassador of the bill. Now, I think, and oddly enough, a week later, he becomes a so-called victim of racism in an attempted lynching. Right after he was named the propagandist for the bill. So what we find, and I think that the news media is trying to sell this idea that they were infiltrating these groups so that they could get information to know how to fight them. I suggest that's not true, and I will be very hopeful that if the Justice Department has communications in text messages or any other written email communications that they will release. I think that they are infiltrating these groups like the Unite the Right to start race propaganda and race situations, to create environments where something racist could happen. And therefore, one, they can target against their political enemies, and two, it justifies their existence because they can look back, and when people say, well, there really isn't racism, they'll look, they just had a march in Charlottesville. Well, look, they had one because you bought the permit. You gave them the money to buy the plane flights. Then people had to stay in the hotel when they were there, and you booked the rooms. That's why they had the march. These people are not trying to infiltrate to bring down the KKK. Like Crystal said, they've been in bed with them for years. They're trying to use their street teams to position them to get political aims that they're trying to achieve. So I hope that the exposure goes far and wide, and we will put out some information to stop these people from coming out here saying, they were trying to infiltrate to be on the side and take down the org. No, you were not. You absolutely were not. You absolutely not. You all know that you have a supply and demand problem. You need to supply enough racism because you can't to gin up a demand that doesn't exist.
The SPLC is sitting on $250 million.
Right, it's crazy, man.
$250 million or more. It's insane how much money these folks are sitting on.
Yeah, you got to triple that number, then we'll get close to it. So at first I pulled up they're a nonprofit, so they have something called a Form 990 they have to file every year. It's a long form because they have a lot of money. But then that lawyer started talking, and he boldly lied on international television just now. So when he said that they would have to prove, and then he went into this whole different direction about the money being used to harm someone, That is simply not true. So according to the U.S. Department of Justice, this is 18 U.S.C. Code 1343, elements of wire fraud. To convict a nonprofit of bank or wire fraud, the government must prove a deliberate scheme to defraud, specific intent to deceive from money, property, use of interstate wires like email, phone wire transfers, and material misrepresentations, even if no loss occurred. This includes providing knowingly false statement intended to cheat a financial institution. So let's look at it. Their alleged prosecutors claim that SPLC, they defrauded donors by essentially funneling secretly over $3 million to leaders of those groups that you talked about, right? So that was publicly exposed, KKK, all that stuff. But the thing is, if an organization at all, regardless of the reason, regardless of how noble you think the cause is, if you hide the fact that you're essentially funding hate groups, even for the purpose of gathering intelligence, it is still illegal and it's liable because you're deceiving its donors. They still have to know that information. The other thing is they operated this clandestine operation which hid through financial trails, which leads to criminal charges. Remember, this came out from them. They used fictitious business names like Fox Photography to mask payments to informants. Sounds great, but that is technically lying to a financial institution on a federal level, right? That's a big boy crime right there, all right? And so if you look at these cases, look, this is one of the easiest ones. When you have bank and wire fraud, they have a number trail. They don't arrest you for that and then do the investigation. And one of the hardest things to argue in court is that 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4. It doesn't typically go over well. 88% of those that go to court are convictions, right? But 90% never go to court because they plead guilty before it ever gets there, right? That's how lock solid these typically are. Only human trafficking, I think, and one other one are higher than that for convictions. But last year, they made a net profit of $106 million. They have a total of $786 million in assets, and they had they have an average growth of 75 million, but they're not giving out anywhere near as much. I could get deeper into this. I look up how much their employees make. That guy's making $500,000 every single year, the one who started this. I'm happy this came out. I really am. And you're absolutely right, Wise. Just off of this 5-minute dive into the numbers, something doesn't smell right. If a nonprofit has that much money, it's fine. The world should be changed with having almost $1 billion and a lot of individuals on for the cause. They pay the lowest person $20,000 a year. And yet they had $69 million they put out in compensation total for an employee group that at best is about 300, 400 people. You do the math.
They're making so much money.
Hey,
and the fact that people are trying to defend this is just outrageous. I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. What are your thoughts about any of this? Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notifications on to all so you never miss an upload. Consider joining the ARP family, or you can buy your brother a coffee. That link's in the description box below. And as always, keep God first. Stay prayed up. We'll catch up with you guys next time. Peace.
It is God who arms me with strength. Yeah, I'm battle ready. He trains my hands for battle. My heart stays steady. But thanks be to God, he gives us the victory. Through my Lord Jesus Christ, it can't live in me. I was down to the dirt, red clay on my shoes, old pain in my shirt, oh so bruised. Then the Lord hit my chest, kicked air from my breath, put power in my step.